You're listening to A Target's Voice with Karen Estabrooks.
Hi, I'm Karen Estabrooks, and thank you for joining us today as we commence the 13th annual International Workplace Bullying Awareness Week. I thought it would be very appropriate to invite the woman to join us and talk a little bit about the whole event, Linda Crockett. Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you for having me. I am the woman.
It is such a pleasure to have you on. And I'm so glad that I asked you to come and talk to us because, you are the woman and, you are so well followed. And, it's been fun to watch you as, I got to know you. It's been really fun to watch you. So, I have some questions and I'm sure that they will answer other people's questions too. So my first question is, because of the work you do today, was the incident that you had back in 2008 the very first incident that you ever experienced bullying yourself?
I'm glad you asked that because it's different than I'm usually asked, and the answer is no. But I didn't know that, right? So at the point that I hit rock bottom in 2008. I didn't know what workplace bullying was. Nobody taught it or trained that. So when I finally figured out what was happening and I got into recovery and then I got into university to get a master's degree in this area and read the research, I was flabbergasted that actually in that 22 years of social work prior, I had either seen it or experienced it in every workplace I'd ever been in. And I'm talking, lateral violence. I'd experienced peer-to-peer bullying. I experienced mobbing, where that's two or more, like a gang mentality. So I've experienced all kinds. I just didn't know it. So really, I was perfectly trained for this job. That's what I came to realize anyway.
Yes, you were. So really, how did that specific experience of bullying change your life?
Well, change it to compare to right today, because it certainly changed my life then. I mean, when I was being bullied at the time, I was working in a cancer center, and I'm a pretty strong person. I'm pretty tenacious, Scots person. But at the time I was vulnerable because I'm working in a cancer center, which I love my job, by the way. But my mother was also terminally ill from cancer. So I was grieving. I was going through anticipatory grief, anticipating her death. And it was complicated because she was out of province. So every spare moment I had was traveling back and forth to be with my mother. And it wasn't an easy process. The relationship was complicated. And here I am working in that area, which should have been comforting and supportive. But 2 days before she died, is when the bullying started. So right at the point when I'm at my most vulnerable, I am not myself. I am not tenacious. I'm kind of in that insane place of a grief. The bullying started. So I was quite shocked and devastated by it. And I didn't really get to grief. I decided I was going to work hard because I loved my job. And I was going to try and save my job. And I was going to prove to them that I deserved to be there. So my whole first year, which should have been spent grieving, was actually spent in a state of hypervigilance, trying to save my job, trying to prove to them that I was, worthy, that I was really good employee, because I know I was. But that changed my life because I was opened up to a whole new world. I mean, cancer in itself is a whole new world for us, for my family. But workplace bullying was a whole new world for me as a professional social worker.
Yes.
That meant a very big career change, right? And I used to be quite a shy person. I was not a public speaker, but this experience was so crazy making. The recovery for me helped me learn how important this is. Like, I didn't think I was going to survive, to be honest with you. I mean, physically, I got so ill. Mentally, I was quite suicidal. And I thought, I got through this, I survived. But what about people who don't speak English as a first language? What about people who don't have the social work 22 years I had? I knew systems, I knew abuse, right? what about them? And then I thought about my grandchildren. I have 9 grandchildren, and at least 4 of them had already been bullied in the school. And I thought, I don't want them growing up. I don't want them to growing up and going to work and being bullied, going through what I went through and the suffering that I went through. I don't want them to go through that. And I hope anybody listening here will think about that. This is their future that we've got to speak up for. Well, that gave me courage like none other, let me tell you. When I came to realize that it was time to start talking about it, come out of silence, come out of hiding, come out of isolation, and start making a noise. Here we are, it's 2/23, and it's International Bullying Week. We have 17 countries joining us now. I never shut up, and I'm not going to start. So I found my voice.
Love that. I love that. And you know what? I really want one of the messages that people get in our conversation here today and listening to you talk is don't ever stop talking. Don't ever stop standing up, and don't ever stop encouraging other people. Because, if we stay quiet, as we've talked about before, it gives people permission to continue. And if we don't stand up for ourselves, it doesn't stop. And I acknowledge you for all the work that you've done. You are a phenomenal stand, and I've watched you over the past year and a half, and I really acknowledge the work that you do, and how committed and dedicated and passionate you are about it.
Well, thank you. I want to say something to what you just said there, that when you are vulnerable and when you're in the midst of this and you're really vulnerable and you're frightened and you're not yourself, you're experiencing symptoms of insomnia and memory loss, and you're thinking there's something wrong with you because you can't think straight, and you feel fearful and even paranoid. I want people to know that that's not a time to speak up. Get some help.
Yes.
Get some help from somebody who's experienced in this area, because the day is going to come, if you commit to your recovery, with or without justice, if you get that recovery, you're going to find your voice again, and have somebody help you develop a strategy that is safe for you. Because it's not safe for everybody to speak up, but when you're ready, don't shut up.
Thank you. It's really an important message, because you're right. Sometimes if people speak up too quickly, they're not going to be able to communicate in a way that lands well and often is heard properly. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, well, you make another good point there. I mean, lands well, you might even hurt somebody else because your perspective isn't healed yet. You know what I mean? Like, you're still so, like, in the first year or two of my own recovery, I absolutely didn't want anything to do with the respondents. Don't bring any bully near me. I'm not talking to them, and I was upset and angry with bystanders. I had to do a lot of healing before I could do what I'm doing today. And I work with the bystanders. I help them. I help the perpetrators, the respondents. I work with them, but it takes healing to get that balance and that perspective back. And we're not saying, an awful lot of people say, oh, it's just your perspective. Don't take me that way. I'm not. Your perspective is important. But when you're hurt and you're injured, because this is an injury, this is a psychological injury. Our perspectives aren't something like, even when you're grieving and you're experiencing death and dying, our perspectives are not full capacity. We are distorted by grief or distorted by trauma. So you need some help to get that capacity back and that balance, and that be able to have a really fair, holistic perspective of things.
And people that haven't gone through it don't understand that. They really don't. So thank you.
It's like cancer. If you've never been through it, you don't know what it's like. I'm not
Perfect
saying
analogy.
I know what it's like as a child of somebody, but just like bullying, you can have an understanding. You can certainly learn and read, and you should watch some documentaries or videos on it and gain as much as you can, like you could with anything else. But until you've actually walked that walk, you don't really know the devastation and the risks that we're all at. I hope that people will just keep open minds and open hearts to empathize and just put yourselves in people's shoes and try to understand it.
Absolutely. And I actually think that more people experience bullying, whether it be at home, at work, in social situations, then we even understand. I don't even think that, I think it's so socially normalized that we don't even realize how much we're experiencing it.
Well, I certainly said that back in 2008, but I can tell you that I think I could see some change since then.
That's wonderful. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, what kind of bullying did you experience at work? And, you know, I didn't, so when you say that you experienced bullying numerous times, you may have experienced bullying, various forms of bullying then. So in the incident in 2008, what kind of bullying did you experience then? And maybe you, if you don't mind, elaborate on the most common types of bullying that people experience in the workplace today.
Mm-hmm. Well, I really couldn't tell you what's the most common, but I can tell you that, you know, you can experience bullying in different forms. So it could be one-on-one, whether that's your leader bullying you or that is your equal bullying you. The equal would be lateral violence, peer-to-peer. Top down, bottom up leadership. You know, research does say that 74-ish% of bullying is coming top down, which is actually good information for us because now we know where the problem is, which in my opinion says that we are not setting leaders up for success. And we need to set leaders up for success. Competent, confident people do not bully. Confident, competent leaders do not need to bully. So that tells us we're not setting them up for success. Maybe they need more training. Maybe we need to be watching our hiring practices. Maybe we need to monitor, give them an executive coach, give them some, you know, give them the support so that they have confidence and they feel competent. But leaders have some responsibility there too, and that's to assess whether they have an area of, are they afraid of conflict? Well, then they should deal with that fear of conflict, or they won't be a competent leader. Anyway, so I certainly was bullied by my leaders. My leader at that time was a psychologist with 22 years of experience in his profession. So he really knew how to manipulate. He knew how to put on different personas for the right people. And he knew how to read. Well, he wasn't very good at it because, I mean, a lot of us just had that creepy feeling and we just knew there was something not right. And he got caught a few times. But he would actually train other leaders like my supervisor or the acting supervisors because they started to mimic his behaviors. So my supervisor was a social worker. She was also bullying me. And then there was an acting supervisor who was a pastor who used to be one of my cheerleaders. But when she became the acting supervisor, she started to do stuff he did.
Yes.
And I would say that the manager of administration was probably a bully too, but she was silent. She was always behind closed doors. She would just cheer on what was going on. You know, she didn't say anything or do anything, but she certainly didn't step up and say, hey, you can't treat people that way. And then I would have to say that there was 2 HR bullies as well that were involved in this group. So we're talking now about a mobbing group, right? So it could be any dynamic, the manager and the 2 HR or the supervisor and 1 HR, and just brutalizing, you know, like, for example, oh, there's just so many examples. Like she made me feel crazy. The supervisor made me feel crazy. You know, she would give me a certain amount of time off and it would be on her calendar right behind her head, but she'd be screaming in my face saying, who the hell do you think you are for booking that time off? You just gave me permission a week ago. It's on the calendar behind you. And then she accused me of saying that she was unprofessional. And she was raging, bulging eyes, spitting, telling me I had told her she was unprofessional. And I knew in my head, I hadn't even thought that. So how could I have said it? But she was so convincing, even I was starting to doubt myself. And then she got up out of her chair, whipped across the hall into my manager's office and shut the door. And I thought, oh no, she's telling him that. She's lying. Now I'm going to get in trouble. And then 2 or 3 minutes later, she'd come out laughing. And I mean laughing loud so I would hear it. And about the 6th time that happened, I realized that was a tactic. You know, when it happens like that and you're getting crap and then all of a sudden she slams the door in the boss's office and comes out laughing. This is a tactic that was made up by the 2 of them. You start to feel unsafe. You start to feel like, what else are they capable of? Like, this is cruelty. But there was times when I felt my life was at risk. Yes, there really was. And I did end up with PTSD as a result of this job. And again, I loved my job. I just wanted to do my job.
Mm,
It
I'm
was,
sure, I'm sure many of us that have experienced the bullying know exactly what you're talking about when you say that.
well, if I had a loony for every time somebody said, I just want to do my job, I'd be a millionaire. Oh yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So compared, and thank you so much for that. That's excellent information for people. And I'm sure that as people are listening to you talk, they're, things are, going off in their minds where they're like, oh my gosh, that's bullying. Oh my gosh, this is the tactic. It just makes so much sense. And, just the whole experiencing it and it making sense for people.
People have to trust their gut. I mean, we all know at some point
Yes.
something's not right here. Like you're confused, you're wondering what the heck was that? And that's when you start ruminating in bed at night. Like, I got to make sure that doesn't happen tomorrow, make sure I get in front of it. And that's why the insomnia kicks in, because you're so ruminating about what just happened and how do I prevent that? So people need to be aware, trust your gut, your first gut that says something's not right, and then
Yes.
get sanity checks with somebody, you know?
Oh, absolutely. That's great advice. Over the years, what have you seen in changes since you started the Canadian Institute of Workplace Bullying Resources?
Mhm.
Tell us what you've seen and what you're seeing today that's different.
Well, I have changed company names a couple of times because I've had to expand. When I first started, I was just going to be an advocate for social workers. And within months of that, I had nurses and police officers coming to me for some help. So I ended up changing it to Alberta Bullying Resources. And then it came from Alberta to the Canadian Institute, and it's expanded to the Canadian Institute of Workplace Bullying Resources, which is a for-profit. I've just opened the Canadian Institute of Workplace Harassment and Violence, which is a not-for-profit. And we do two different things. So it's expanding. So that's one thing that's happened. It's gotten bigger and it's gotten bigger. In the beginning, when I started, even in university, when I was doing my master's degree in this area, the first couple of years, people made fun of me. People would, try to shut me up. They would make fun of me, poo-poo what I was doing. I was on LinkedIn just as often as I am now, or social media, but nobody was really paying attention. And nobody understood it. Nobody was talking about it. I got a lot of, rolling of the eyes and stuff. And even my professors in university just didn't get it. So I was pretty much on my own. And then I would say around the time of the Me Too movement that came out in 2017 and 18, that's when the city of Edmonton, it was also exposed on social media for the number of harassment and different cases that were going on. So when they were highly exposed over media, the Me Too movement was opening people's minds to all these secrets and silences, and people were starting to speak up. And then we got legislation here in Alberta, and we were starting to get legislation in other provinces as well as, a couple of years later, we got it federally. All that kind of energy changing and coming together has really opened up. I would have to say that this issue came out of the closet, because it used to be in the closet. It used to be in the closet, just like domestic violence and sexual assault used to be. It came out of the closet. People are now talking about it. If you go on social media, you see tons of people with, saying that they're specialists or experts or they have resources, where there was pretty much nothing back then. And now I have the honor of working with some of the larger companies that used to ignore me are now knocking on my door, and that's a massive change. That's very exciting. I know that the legislation is still a bit weak. Our provincial legislation is still a bit weak, but it's going to get better. I know it's going to get better, because we're not going to go away. We're going to keep working on it.
Well, and in Canada, and you're absolutely right. So in Canada now, what does the legislation look like across the provinces? And how is it compared to other countries like the US, other countries that are working hard to be recognized as well?
Well, Gary Namey in the USA, named the Healthy Workplace Bill, and they've been working on that for, I don't know, 15 plus years, David Yamada and Gary Namey. But they don't have legislation. They don't have it. So they're still working on it. They're not giving up either. And I believe it's going to happen. But I mean, look at our world state right now. I don't think that that's going to be a priority at the moment. So, and as far as across Canada, unfortunately, every province has different languaging, and I wish we would just all agree on one definition so that it would prevent confusion. But there's plenty of definitions today. There's plenty of wording that is similar that people can put it together. I think we rolled it out wrong. We should have trained occupational health and safety. We should have trained human rights. We should have trained government of Alberta Health Services. We should have all been, they should have been trained. WCB, all of it, WSIB should have been trained before the legislation rolled out, because we made a lot of mistakes in the beginning. But it's getting better. And if you really know what you're talking about, you can use it. I think the Northwest Territories is the only place in Canada that doesn't have it yet, but they're working on it. So we are the only country that I know of in the world that has it this wide.
Wow.
But Australia's working on theirs. New Zealand needs some help and support. The UK has been working on theirs over the last couple of years and getting stronger and stronger. Japan, there's many countries that are joining us that are doing their own events. This is a worldwide issue. I keep saying that. And so we need a worldwide voice, and that's the solution.
That's fantastic. So with your work, what changes or advances excite you the most?
Because, like I said, the bigger organizations are knocking on my door, and those ones, the larger the organization, the more twisted layers of complex, insidious bullying and harassment, discrimination, racism exists, right? So that they need the help and they have the power. And so we need to make sure that they start to buy into this and they start to make the changes. I mean, a lot of these large organizations that I cannot name have great websites, with lovely documentation on psychological safety, but I'm seeing their employees. So I'm getting those phone calls. So I know that there's still a massive problem.
Absolutely.
And so it would really be nice to see. I mean, a lot of these companies have experts right here in Canada. I'm not the only one. They should be calling us in to train all their staff and make it mandatory. And it should be trauma-informed training. This is a psychological harassment. This is psychological violence. It means there is a psychological component to it, potential injury. That means you need trauma-informed training. There's a few of us that do it. I don't know why they're not taking advantage of that. I'm very excited about the changes that are coming as far as, more papers are coming out, more research. There's a lot more light being shined on academic bullying, which is fantastic. So we are seeing progress. We are, definitely. People are talking.
That's fantastic. So all of you leaders that are listening to our podcast today, look below, because there's going to be the websites indicated, and reach out, because there are so many organizations out there that need help. Leaders definitely need training. There's no question about it. There's a huge gap. And if you do not look after your people are not going to look after you. They're not going to give you what you deserve in having great, loyal, hardworking, people that are engaged and show up at, it's a win-win when leaders are engaged with their employees, and, it works really well. Research has shown it. So, Linda, I know that you're a very passionate and committed person to your work. So, it's very challenging work that you do. Mm-hmm. What keeps you going every day? Because I know you are.
Well, I'm going to say it's been 13 years now. This January is 13 years. And it hasn't always been easy. There's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And there's been a lot of betrayals even towards me. There's been a lot of different phases. And every year there's a different theme that I can see going on out there in the world and stuff like that. I really thought that during COVID, I was going to get a break, because I've never not been busy. But actually, COVID made my work 4 times busier than it was before. So there was no break. And it's hard to find people that will be as dedicated and hardworking and committed. I've got that team now, but it was hard to find those, very sincere, authentic, qualified people to do this work. And I'm so grateful that I have it now. When I didn't, it was hard. It was very hard. There was many times when I was very close to saying I can't do this anymore, and I'd have to back off and take a little break. Challenges, to your health, things like that, normal family stuff. but I am so glad I didn't quit. I am so glad I'm still here, because the next couple of years I can see what's coming and I'm super excited about it. I can't wait. I can't share it at the moment. It'll be out next week. But, we do have a fundraising event in Toronto on October the 20th. That is the not-for-profit Canadian Institute of Workplace Harassment and Violence. And we started that just so that we could raise funds to help injured workers. A lot of my clients come to me and they've exhausted their savings. Some of them have even lost their homes. I can think of a few nurses and teachers that have lost everything fighting for what was right.
Yes.
And eventually one won her case, but she lost everything in the meantime. And another one disappeared. I don't know where she is. I don't even know if she's alive.
Wow.
But we need to stop that. So we decided I wanted to have funding so that if you were just sitting on the edge of trying to decide, do I fight it or do I give up? You could get a consult from a lawyer that might just help you make that decision, or maybe you don't want to fight it, but you need some help and you can't afford it because you've just fought with all your money. We want to be able to give people funds to get some treatment or get a legal consult. I truly believe with that, you have a right to that, you should have that. But I truly believe with more voices coming forward, we will get changes even faster. But as long as we keep people without money, they're without a voice, they're without legal support, then we're doing another injustice. So we have this event on October 20th, and I'm going to Toronto on Thursday to get ready for it. And it's a celebration that we've come this far.
Yes, and a bright road ahead. So if anyone would like to donate, again, I'm going to put the GoFundMe page below. So if you'd like to donate and support the event on October 20th, please do. All of that money goes to supporting people that are in need of help. So there's a lot of people that need help. And, like Linda said, it's intimidating when you look at the cost to speak up. If you're hiring a lawyer, that's very expensive. And so whatever we can do within the Canadian Institute of Workplace Harassment and Violence to support people, to give them the knowledge that they need, give them the guidance. And one of the really important pieces is validation, because having that gives people the confidence to keep going to, and knowing that what they're dealing with is in fact a form of harassment, or bullying, form of violence. So thank you. Linda, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to share with us. It's always wonderful to hear you talk. I listen to you on the other podcasts that you're on as well, and you always have such great things to say. And I'm really excited to see what the future holds for all of the institutes and everything that you're touching.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
A Target's Voice is brought to you by the Canadian Institute of Workplace Harassment and Violence. For more information, go to www.workplaceharassment.ca.